Freight Efficiency with NACFE's Mike Roth and Friends.
Here in episode 128, we have joining us Blair Hefty. He's a senior media manager at Coyne PR, where he talks about his career in public relations, how things have changed in that industry in the past 20 years, and his love of the motorsports industry. He also talks about the importance of the personal touch in business, the need for in-person events, what he likes about the trucking industry, what frustrates him about it, and how we should deal with change. He also shares his thoughts on what makes a good event, including the mixing of business with some social and, of course, some fun. Today we have joining us Blair Hefty. He's a senior media manager at Coyne PR. I'm glad to have you on today, Blair. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's great to be here. Appreciate being on.
Before we go any further, we got to figure out how we became friends. Have you thought about it? Do you remember, or you want me to try, or what?
I think we met through Shell with the Shell Starship, which that program for us, the truck first went on the road in 2018, but we started working on it in about 2016. So you and I met somewhere in there as we started talking about having NACFE to monitor the progress of the truck and all the data from that. So I'm pretty sure that's where we met.
I do remember distinctly accepting an invite, or maybe I just heard about it and went to a pub along the river in Louisville, where Shell, you were probably there, Blair, but Shell announced that, with the guy that built the bullet truck that we were going to do Starship. So I remember, burgers and bourbon, probably, if it was Nashville.
Yes, it was. This one. Yep, it was a restaurant called Sidebar right next to the the KFC Yum Center, and we were announcing the Starship program at Matt's. So yes, we had set up that whole event and had rented the place out. So that was a neat event. I remember that we did a couple of those there, and they were good.
I gotta believe that this business has changed a lot with social media. Different forms of people companies getting their stories out. Man, that's got to be a lot different than earlier in your career. So just take us through that a bit, Blair.
I've been with Coyne for almost 21 years. It's Coyne PR. It's a diverse agency. We work across a number of different industries, obviously trucking, transportation industry that we work in. We work in healthcare, hospitality, a whole host of different things that we work in different practices within the company. So, And yes, it's changed a lot over the years from what I did. We used to do, you'd be writing a press release and mailing press kits and faxing things and sending FedEx packages to media all the time. Now it's everything is virtual. The press kits are all uploaded and people can download them. It's a much simpler process.
Yeah, and like a lot of things in our lives, you end up doing more things digitally and over Zoom and those sorts of things rather than in person. Obviously, it helps with travel and so forth. But for me, it gets kind of frustrating when you can't shake a hand and really see behind with people. How do you view that in that personal touch? We're going to get into events, I think, in this chat, because I think events is where a lot of decisions are made and relationships are formed. But how does that fit with today's world?
In person is important because you build relationships with people. You go to trade shows, you have events for clients where you spend time. You're talking about the business that you're there for, but you also get to know people on a more personal level. You establish relationships like you and I have over the years. So you get to know people a little better, and you find things in common. You look for each other when you go to events, and it's an easy conversation when you're at the office and need to communicate with people too. So it's important to have in-person things, whether we get TMC or we do an event for Shell or other clients, things like that. So those are all important.
So when we don't have enough of those, do you have any tricks or suggestions for us? I mean, how do you get as much of that personal touch as possible over electronics?
It's a lot of it can be via email. You're sending a press release and it's like just a friendly greeting, asking, if you have the relationship with somebody, it's a separate email that you may have, or even a text with people that you're talking about. Hey, I saw this, and it doesn't necessarily have to be related to your client. It could be something, hey, I think this is something this person would be interested in. Send it to them and say, hey, thought this might be of interest to you, thinking about you. So things like that. So there's ways to keep up with people that are, that are genuine and, appreciated by people.
Tell us about you in your career. I mean, what got you into this? What's kept you in it? And just give us a little bit about your background and what makes you tick, Blair.
All right. I guess I'd always been interested in communications through some things I'd even done as a kid. I know we're going to talk a little bit about some of the auto racing, but I had run a fan club for Tom Sneva, IndyCar driver, and winner of the '83 Indy 500, and had gotten to know some of the communications people through that. So was always interested in that, in public relations. After college, got a job working for Chris Economaki at National Speed Sport News. So that was kind of my professional entree, and then worked for an agency. We worked with BMW, did some work in some motorsports communications for the Formula Atlantic Series, Michelin in their sports car program, and a variety of different things, and came to Coyne in 2005 because their automotive and transportation practice was starting to grow and needed to add a couple of folks. So I came on and started working some with Shell Pennzoil and Quaker State, but then worked on Shell Rotella, which kind of has led to all the work I've done in the transportation space, and really enjoy that industry, the transportation and trucking industry quite a bit.
We've known each other a long time, but we were at a dinner in Indianapolis within the last year or so where you and I were like, oh my God, because my grandfather took me to the Indy 500 when I was a very young child. I mean, I was maybe 7. And then I didn't go for like 20 years. And now I think this one in May will be my 23rd consecutive race again. And, I just gotten lucky. Maybe it's a little bit we've done a few things with you guys at the track, but Penske and others. So I found my way into talking to some drivers and some teams. But so how old were you, and what attracted you to racing to do a Tom Sneva fan club? And if you don't know Tom Sneva, Google him. He was a hell of a racer.
He was the gas man. And I had written a report. Actually, you could do independent studies in high school, and I actually did it in 8th grade, about different topics. My older brother had done a couple of these in high school, and I wrote it about the Indy 500, and I sent questionnaires to all the drivers. And Sneva answered, and a lot of them answered. I've got them from Al Unser, from Mario Andretti, Bobby Unser, Gordon Johncock, a bunch of them. But Sneva had answered. He had sent a lot of pictures and really thoroughly answered the questionnaire. So
let me interrupt you. For those of you that are younger, anybody listening that's younger than Blair and I, which is going to be a lot, it was common for teachers to give assignments where they said, just send letters to people. And I remember doing a state report, and, I don't remember, Arkansas or something. And it was, to send letters to the, tourism department of the state of Arkansas. So, I mean, that was pretty common. I mean, and most of us would never get anything back, and occasionally you'd get something. So, were you a child racer, or just
no, just had an interest in it and decided I wanted to do this study and this book, and wrote kind of a history of the Indy 500, but then did the questionnaires and got, a good amount of responses from the drivers, and I got to met Tom at Trenton Speedway in 1976, and got to know him, and, asked it, hey, can we start a fan club for you? Obviously had to have my parents backing. My mom helped did a lot of the work. We did newsletters, packets, a couple meetings here and there for things over the years. So it was kind of a fun adventure, and Tom was great. He's, still keep up with Tom. He's been an awesome person to know over the years.
What's your perspective on the trucking industry? First of all, what do you like about it? What wakes you up every morning and says, man, I got to do something in the transportation or trucking industry today, and I'm excited.
I think because we work with a lot of the fleets on the fleet side, but we also work on the owner operator side. So you get to see the diversity of the industry and what makes the different people tick. And I think a lot of it is, for me, I'm the son of an engineer, and some of that mindset or the idea of it is connected with me a little bit. But it's the technology advancements, particularly like the engines and things like that, are of interest to me, and the powertrains, and how are we powering these vehicles, and how are the efficiency, and a lot of the things that you see coming out there that kind of align with what we're doing with the Shell Starship or other things as well.
Sure, sure. And I've been pretty open with being cautious to call these times like transformational. I think a lot of us make a mistake of, wow, so things are so different that my predecessor didn't have to deal with all this stuff I'm dealing with. That's why it's so hard. So I've been careful, but I've come around to, with trucking and automation, the safety equipment we have on these trucks now, letting the computer drive the truck from time to time, electric vehicles, hydrogen, the changes to duty cycles and middle mile versus longer mile. I mean, there's a lot going on right now, and now we're in a freight recession, which kind of limits what we can spend in all those things that are happening right in front of us. How do you feel about that? Do you think these are extraordinarily changing times that we'll look back on, or the industry will look back on if we're not around 30, 40 years ago? And man, those 2020s were a time of a lot of change and we made it through. Or are we overdoing it, Blair? Is this a little like, just more evolutionary than revolutionary?
I think it's I think it's kind of a combination of both. There's a lot of evolution that's happening, and you're seeing, the how the vehicles are powered and looking at different options. Electrification is obviously something it's important, but how this is going to evolve is interesting. But I think it's also, I guess, revolutionary in that, we had diesel engines for so many years that there weren't a lot of changes. So it's kind of a combination. I guess it's a revolution, but it's got to be an evolutionary process. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of a slow process, but you've got to work through it all. I mean, you've talked about the messy middle, all those things, you've really got to work through a lot of things. So I think, it's going to be interesting to see how all this shakes out, and what we're going to land on in 40 years. People may be looking back going, okay, that was great, but we've got this newer technology that we can look at now, and it may just be an ongoing process for many years.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of our responsibility, you in the public relations world and NACFE in a nonprofit kind of education, I don't know, implementation of technologies world. I think our responsibility is to learn and help educate the people that are really doing the FERT movement and the trucking work, and prepare them for when they're going to have to act on these things. Because, it's evolutionary and until it affects me, and then it's revolutionary because, it affects me. I mean, that whole idea, that book from 20 years ago, Who Moved My Cheese, some morning we're going to wake up and realize, oh, it's different. And now if I don't change, I'm going to be a dinosaur and be gone. It's kind of the way I think of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, in the industry I'm in, or any industry you're in, you've got to be open to change, and see it, sort of understand how it's. Let me start that over. You've got to look at change and be ready for, not just a bunch ready for it, but be willing to see what it is and be able to adapt to it.
Yeah, good point. And oftentimes, one of the things we're learning in NACFE is oftentimes we are curious and worry about the risks and the problems or the challenges of technologies, and we don't really understand their benefits as much as we should. There's a reason that new technology exists, because somebody thinks it's going to make our lives better, cheaper, faster, whatever. And it's kind of easy for us to protect ourselves from technology and worry about all the things that could go wrong. And I think part of our roles is to help people understand how could this make you better, versus just worrying about what's wrong with it.
Yeah, look for what the benefits are and how you can, or if there are issues with it, how do we solve these problems and make them effective for people? And a lot of what I do and through our, through what we do is in communications is communicate to people what the benefits are and why they're there, how things are changed or how technology is changing and what the benefits of things are.
What about the trucking industry frustrates you? I know that's kind of a loaded question. I don't want you to complain about your job, but I got a couple of things that frustrate me. But why don't you go first?
um, I think it's the rapid pace of change, and we're moving in one direction, but then we've got to backtrack, and maybe we're looking at different other technologies, whether it's electrification, it's hydrogen, it's how this is going to be what we need to do, but then you pull back from that. So it's challenging how things are changing, particularly with regulations changing and different things. So there's a lot of things that you've got to keep up with on a daily basis, and what's going on. So it's important to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that frustrates me, and I don't want anybody to take this, either you, Blair, or anybody listening, but it is, and it's not something we can do that much about, and that is just the breadth and depth and diversity of trucking. I mean, you've got owner operators, and we've got mega fleets of 10,000 trucks. We have flatbed and dry van and long haul and short distance and mountains and refrigerated. I mean, it's just so
Yeah.
diverse. I'm not sure that's the right word, but it's so diverse, and we have a lot of data now, so we can kind of figure out this diversity. And some of these technologies will work in this segment, not work in that segment. It's one of the reasons I've been in the industry forever and stay in it, because it's challenging, but it's also a frustrating part for me too. And let's dig into events, because I know you do a number of events. What makes a good event? And maybe if you've even got one recently that you've worked on, you can use that as an example.
Yeah, sure. We've done a number of events about a decade ago that with Shell that kind of took this to different parts of the world. So we got to really get to know people, build relationships with journalists, and get to know people, and really see what technology is in different parts of the world. So those were kind of some neat events that we did. But to be a little bit more current, the test drive event we did, I guess in October of 2024. With that you attended with Shell Starship at Barber Motorsports Park. We had journalists have followed this truck for, at that point, 6 years or more, and a lot of the drivers have the journalists have their CDL, so they want to be able to get in the truck and drive it or experience it. And there's been a lot of hey, can we get in this truck? Well, this was finally an opportunity to put people in the truck. Yeah. So it was a neat event to do, and it worked out very well. So the journalists could experience it for themselves and see what the technology was about. You have mirror eye cameras on it. You've got different things and how it handles. So it was a good event, and we had a lot of great coverage and feedback from everyone that attended.
Yeah, it's really when events can become true experiences instead of just like reading things and watching things and looking at videos, getting out. And I remember my time in International Truck, I participated in a bunch of new product launches, and there was nothing like ride and drive events. I remember Dallas Motor Speedway. I remember Las Vegas, where we did, big new truck events. And, these trucks, a lot of these drivers, and they're going to spend a ton of time. Like, a truck driver might spend really 2/3 of his lifetime, or 2/3 of the hours in a week actually in the truck, half of that driving, half of that sleeping and being home a few times. So if you can get not just you can get drivers, but also journalists and others actually in trucks, that makes a big event. And, I remember that too. I was in Birmingham Barber Motorsports. And so, and you don't need long distances on the highways, public roads to do that. Sometimes, doing it on private courses can gain much of the experience you're looking for. Yeah.
Yes, and that event certainly worked out well. And I think with events we do that involve the drivers and things, the drivers are willing to talk to you about their experiences on the road and some of the things that they see, and what their ideas are and thoughts are on things. Those are important things to get feedback from when we do trade shows. We do we do Mid America, the MATS show, and that's driver focused, and it's important for all of us, the Shell people, and others. Everybody there is able to gain insights from each other and learn. So I think those those trade shows that really bring people together are an important thing too, to learn a lot of different things about.
And how do you mix, any advice on mixing, like the social aspect of these events with the hard content? So, I think at an event like this, there's got to be time in a under a tent or in a conference room where the key content leaders, are explaining the new thing. In this case, you would have had Cummins there and other Starship partners telling their stories and so forth. And then you've got the ride and drive event, but that's oftentimes mixed with, a dinner or, some sort of other, maybe allied or similar content, but definitely in more of a social atmosphere. You hear, I call things sometimes, I was on this boondock, so you want it to have plenty of content, but while you're there, you might as well have some fun too. How do you make those decisions, or what's your advice on that?
Those are things that typically when we had done an event at Texas A&M Transportation Institute a few years ago, in 2019 actually, and we had worked with TTI, and we had some folks from within the industry come out that talked, and we had some Shell people talking about trucking efficiency. So we did that. But then, so you're kind of giving presentations from different people during the day, which when you do different presentations from people, it's not just like the client centric. They're learning from different people and hearing different perspectives. And we took a tour of the facilities at TTI. They have a lot to do with highway safety and different things. So learned about a lot of different things out there. So you're kind of sitting in a room, in a classroom type thing, hearing people speak or doing panels, but then you're going out and you're seeing things and learning as well. And we did dinners and some things at night as well. So you kind of mix the business end of it with just having some social and fun times. And typically at night when we've done these things, there's not, you're not there and we're not talking to you about our product or the service or, kind of what the reason is. It's more just to have an enjoyable social time.
I remember that event you're bringing up, and I actually almost disagreed on stage with another speaker. And that evening, we kind of had it out over a beer, nicely. I mean, it was like, well, what did you mean by that? What did I mean by that? We had more in common than we thought. So, well, hey, Blair, we're running out of time. But just from your chair, what's your, and you're in the industry, but I would say you got a little bit of a, outside view, and you can see a lot of the things that are going on, with all this change in interest. What suggestions do you have people that are listening to this that are trying to figure out batteries and this and that and all of the challenges with the industry? What would you suggest they do or act or be as we move forward?
I would say just learn as much as you possibly can about the different technologies and where these things are and what are the benefits. Learn from people like you and others that in the industry that are experts and can provide you information. Read some of the white papers and different things and look at what the various, whether it's the engine suppliers, oil marketers, others that are doing things in the industry, what are they doing, and kind of look at the trends. Go to some of the trade shows, ACT Expo, TMC, some of the others, and learn and see, okay, I work with, a lot with Shell, but look at what other people within the industry are doing, because it's so diverse. You need to look at it across the board as to what's going on. And I think that can kind of guide you on some of the things you're going to need to learn about and see, and read. There's the journalists in the trucking space do a tremendous job. I mean, they're essentially reporting on the business of trucking every day. So they've got some great knowledge, and read those publications.
Excellent. Yeah. Think bigger, and then you got to act more specifically. And so thanks a lot for doing this, Blair. It's been fun. I was insightful. Let's go racing sometime.
That sounds good.
Because an open invite to anybody listening. If you're coming to Indianapolis in May, look me up. So, all right. Take care, Blair.
Okay, Mike. Thank you.
Freight Efficiency with NACFE's Mike Roth and Friends.